What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. This is a really late edition of the JT Sports Podcast. The reason for it was because when we tried the live stream earlier, the stream crashed in the middle of my top 10 defenses going into the NFL season, and the stream also crashed yesterday if you guys went that live. And you know, there's been a problem with the software I've been using, and there was an update right before I decided to go live earlier, but I decided to say, you know what, I don't think I need the update just yet. It probably was just a one-time occurrence, and ended up happening again. So hopefully the update has fixed everything, and if this stream crashes again, I'm going to try to find a better solution so we continue to go live for the foreseeable future. But if you're new, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, around 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we got a really exciting episode. I'm going to be giving you guys my top 10 defenses going into the 2023 NFL season, my top MVP candidates going into the 2023 NFL season, the Lamar Jackson playoff narrative. Is Lamar Jackson just a bad playoff performer, or have the Ravens held him back? And lastly, I'm going to be telling you guys my biggest concern with the Cincinnati Bengals going into this year. Make sure that you listen to the podcast. We're not just available on YouTube. You can find us on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. I want to talk about my top 10 defenses going into the upcoming NFL season. Now, we already did my top 10 offenses going into this year. Make sure that you guys go ahead and check that out. And when it comes to my top 10 defenses, I want to give you guys my criteria. I'm going off not just talent, but good coaching as well. So if you don't have a good coach, I'm not going to have your defense on here. And if you're a talented team that also has good coaching as well, you're going to be a little bit higher on this list. And the first team I'm going to start off with are the New England Patriots. Now, on paper, the New England Patriots defense probably doesn't really excite anybody, but they have a really good defensive line that's fantastic when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. Matthew Judon, ever since the Patriots signed him, he's been a stud. He had 15.5 sacks last year. You also have Josh Uche, who had 11.5 sacks. They got a really good core of safeties. They're really talented, really deep at that position. Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar is starting to emerge as one of the better safeties in the league. And then you got Adrian Phillips. And then you drafted cornerback Christian Gonzalez in the first round of this past year's NFL draft. Hopefully, Jack Jones is able to come to a agreement or find a way out of his legal issues that allows him to play this year. But even if he's not ready to go, you still do have Marcus Jones, who I think had a pretty solid year last season. So for the New England Patriots, defensively, they need this defense to be as good as advertised. If this is a top 10 defense and they have at least a solid offense this year, they definitely have a chance to compete for the 7th spot in the AFC this year. And for Bill Belichick, a lot of people are starting to say that this is a make or break season for him. If the Patriots don't make it to the playoffs, there's a little bit of a possibility that Bill Belichick may not return in 2024. So if the Patriots are going to have a chance at making it to the postseason, they need this defense to play at a high level, and I believe that it will. Although Bill Belichick isn't really all that great as of late when it comes to managing the offensive side of the football, he's still one of the better defensive-minded coaches that we have in the NFL. The Houston Texans come in at number 9. A lot of people probably are going to be a little bit surprised with this selection. Some people probably in the comment section type in their hate comments saying, JT, I hope you didn't quit your day job. And when you look at the Houston Texans defense, I think a large reason why they're going to have a top 10 defense this year is because of the DeMeco Ryans effect. When he was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, they had one of the best defenses in the league. And he's going to a Houston Texans team that has some of the best young talent on that side of the football. How many of you guys, non-Texans fans, know about how good Jalen Petrie was last season? This guy led the Houston Texans in tackles and interceptions as a safety. He was arguably the best rookie safety in the NFL last year. And when you also look at the fact that you have Derek Stingley, whose rookie season wasn't that good due to the fact that Lovie Smith's scheme just wasn't a good fit for his talents, DeMeco Ryans is going to be able to elevate Derek Stingley. And we should see Derek Stingley have a breakout season this year. They also drafted Will Anderson, who they traded back up to select after they took CJ Stroud. I think he's going to have a really good first season. And then you brought in some key veterans in free agency, such as former 49ers safety Jimmy Ward, who follows DeMeco to Houston. You also signed linebacker Denzel Perryman, who was a former Pro Bowler with the Las Vegas Raiders. So this is a defense that isn't just full of youth. They also have some veteran experience on that side of the football. And I think with DeMeco Ryans being at the helm at the head coach position for the Texans, this is going to be a really good defense. And this is going to be an elite defense fairly fast year one under DeMeco Ryans. Look how good the New York Jets defense was their first season when Robert Saleh became their head coach. They instantly had a fantastic defense. And with the young talent that DeMeco Ryans is going to be inheriting, I think that this Texans defense should be one of the better defenses that they've put on the field in a very long time. The Washington Commanders come in at number 8. I think they have the most underrated defense in the NFL going into this year. Ever since Ron Rivera took over as the head coach for the Commanders, they've had one of the better defenses in the NFL under him every single year. They have one of the most underrated defensive lines in the NFL. When you talk about some of the best D lines in the league, you normally think about the Eagles and the 49ers, but the Washington Commanders are also in that conversation. You got Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, the Brothers of Destruction, and Juan Gotti's voice. And then you got a really good secondary. Cameron Curl was a top 5 safety according to Pro Football Focus. I also am really high on safety Derek Forrest. And at cornerback, you got Kendall Fuller, who's coming off one of the best seasons of his career, and you drafted Emmanuel Forbes in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. And yeah, he came in at 166 pounds. He has gained a good amount of weight ever since then. He's pretty much around 180, so I'm not really concerned about his weight. And he's been looking pretty impressive for Washington so far throughout OTAs and minicamp. And for Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, this defense, I don't think is going to be an issue. This was the sole reason why they went 8-1 last year, because their defense was able to keep them in games. And if this offense can at least be solid, the Commanders should be, without a doubt, a playoff team. And the NFC that doesn't really have too many proven contenders outside of the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. And then after that, it's pretty much everybody else. So I have the Washington Commanders at number 8. At number 7, I'm going with, let me see who I'm going with for number 7. I'm going with the New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-6. Now, the New York Jets, everybody keeps talking about Aaron Rodgers and the offense, and is Aaron Rodgers going to be good enough to get the New York Jets to the playoffs? And not too many people are talking about how good the New York Jets defense was last year. The New York Jets had a top 3 defense last year. And when they played against some of the best offenses in the NFL, they was able to slow them down. And if the New York Jets are going to make it to the playoffs, they're going to need this defense to continue to play as good as what they did in 2022. I'm sick and tired of people making it seem like Aaron Rodgers is the only thing that the New York Jets have, and the defense isn't getting enough recognition. They got Sauce Gardner, who is arguably the best cornerback in the league in a lot of people's opinion. Like, Sauce Gardner is already being compared to some of the best cornerbacks of this past generation. I saw a post on Instagram, you know those start one, trade one, and bench one posts, right? So I saw Sauce Gardner in one of those posts with Richard Sherman and Champ Bailey. And I'm just like, bro, what the hell? This dude has only played one season in the NFL, and people are already crowning him as one of the best cornerbacks ever, man. Like, give me a break. I love me some Sauce Gardner, but can we just hamper back a little bit on the expectations? Like, we're already trying to crown this guy a Hall of Famer, and he's only played 1 year? Like, can we give him a couple of more years to cement himself as one of the best cornerbacks in the league before we start trying to title him one of the greatest cornerbacks of the past decade? Like, some of the people that keep making these polls, gassing up Sauce Gardner, need to calm down a little bit. Like, I'm not trying to deny the man's skill, but trying to put him up there with Richard Sherman and Champ Bailey, some of y'all just getting a little bit too wild with the Sauce Gardner hype. And once again, I love me some Sauce Gardner, but some of y'all are just going a little bit too overboard with the Sauce Gardner love, man. It's getting a little ridiculous. And then at number 6, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, as a Steelers fan, this is the most excited that I've been about the defense in a very long time. Now, I'm going to just throw it out there. I wasn't a big fan of signing old man Patrick Peterson. You got to remember, Patrick Peterson, yeah, he had a lot of interceptions from Minnesota last year, but this was the same guy who was getting cooked by Isaiah Hodgins. Not once, but twice. And most of you guys, just be honest, bro. You didn't know who the hell Isaiah Hodgins was. And the only reason I knew of him was covering the draft when he was coming out of Oregon State. He was on the practice squad to start last year. And then all of a sudden, I see the New York Giants playing the Minnesota Vikings, and Isaiah Hodgins is absolutely terrorizing Patrick Peterson. So there's a lot of Steelers fans who are having some pretty high expectations for Patrick Peterson, but I'm not really expecting a whole lot out of Patrick Peterson. I think he can be productive even though he's getting up there in age, but I don't think he's going to have the kind of impact that many Steelers fans are expecting him to have. I think he's going to be serviceable, but I don't think he's going to be a massive upgrade at the position. Now, I do think that Joey Porter is going to be a fantastic addition to this defense. This is somebody who the Steelers got in the second round when most NFL analysts and scouts or NFL scouts have first round grades on Joey Porter Jr. He is a fantastic fit for this defense. He's a fantastic press, man-to-man cover corner. He was pretty much the best cornerback in the Big Ten. Most people either had him or Sauce Gardner. Well, not him and Sauce Gardner, but him and Devon Witherspoon as their cornerback one going into the draft. Some people had Christian Gonzalez, but Joey Porter Jr. was a fantastic draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's one of my favorite Steelers that we have on this team. Then at linebacker, you signed Elandon Roberts, and you get Cole Holcomb, who I was talking to my guy Warren Gotti, who talks about the Washington Commanders. Make sure that you guys take him out. He says he was a little bit disappointed that the Commanders weren't able to bring him back. When he's able to stay healthy, he's a really fantastic linebacker, and this is the best linebacker unit that Pittsburgh probably has had in a couple of years. Remember that the Achilles heel of this defense has been due to the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't really been able to find answers at the linebacker position. Last year, you brought in Miles Jack. You thought that he was going to be able to solidify your linebacker position, and he wasn't really all that great. So now you restart over at that position by signing Cole Holcomb and Elandon Roberts. And the Steelers have a really good pass rush. Like, we know how good TJ Watt was, but you want to know who was the dude who was stepping up when TJ Watt had to miss a couple of games due to injury? It was Alex Highsmith. He had over double-digit sacks. And not just that, but I think that TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are a top 3 pass rushing duo going into this season. Now, that may be a bold statement, but I think that that's going to prove to be true when you look at the kind of production that Alex Highsmith had last year. And then look at the interior of Pittsburgh's defensive line. You got Cam Hayward, who seems to get better with age. You got Larry Ogunjobi, who is being a really underrated and slept on part of this Steelers defensive line. We know how good Cam Hayward is, but Larry Ogunjobi, I don't think he gets enough recognition for how well he's played for Pittsburgh. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, I really love this defense going into this year. I have them at number 6. Now at number 5, I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, they did lose Steve Wilkes, and they also did lose Jimmy Ward, but they have Steve Wilks, well, they did lose DeMeco Ryans. They have Steve Wilks, who's going to be replacing DeMeco Ryans. And Steve Wilks is one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. So the 49ers have hit on their last couple of DCs. They had Robert Saleh and they had DeMeco Ryans. And now you also have Steve Wilks to the fold. And Steve Wilks, when he was the interim head coach for Carolina last year, he nearly got them boys to the playoffs. And that defense was playing fantastic under his tutelage. So for the 49ers to get Steve Wilks, I think was a really good replacement for DeMeco Ryans. And they have one of the best D-lines in the league. You already had Nick Bosa, Arik Armstead, and now these fools add Javon Hargrave. The rich just get richer, it seems like, man. So you look at how good Javon Hargrave is. He was fantastic for the Philadelphia Eagles. Some people say that he was the best defensive lineman and one of the best players that Philadelphia had on that defense, with one of the greatest pass rushes in NFL history. So you add him to an already scary defensive line that was already really good at getting pressure on the quarterback. The 49ers defense is going to be even tougher to stop up front. Now in the secondary, they did lose Emmanuel Mosley, who signed with the Detroit Lions. Now they do have the Amador Lenore, who I'm not really that high on. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he was great. He had an up and down season last year. He definitely could end up maturing and improving this year, and he could perform better, but I think the jury is still out on him. Charvarius Ward played really well for San Francisco. He was a fantastic free agency signing. And then you still have the best linebacking core in the NFL with Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw. So the 49ers defense, despite the fact that they lost DeMeco Ryans, some people may think that a drop-off is probably doomed to happen for the fact that they lost another good defensive coordinator to a head coaching job. But I think that under Steve Wilks, this is somebody who's still trying to get another opportunity as a head coach. He did a fantastic job as the DC down there in Carolina and the interim head coach. So I expect that to continue with the legacy of Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers continue to make great staff hires when it comes to their defensive coordinator position. And overall, this should be a very good defense this year. I have them starting off my top 5. Number 4, I got the Baltimore Ravens. Mike McDonald and this defense, I don't think they were that great early last year, but during the second half of the season, they really stepped up, especially when Lamar Jackson had to miss a couple of games, or pretty much miss the remainder of the season due to injury, and this defense pretty much carried this team on his back. And you look at their defensive line, yeah, you have some concerns where the pass rush is going to come from. You let Justin Houston walk away. You also let Calais Campbell go as well. Both of those guys were up there in age. But I do think that they have some young pass rushers who are going to step up this year. Odafe Oweh, I think, can be really good. You do have David Ojabo, who a lot of people probably forgot about, but in last year's draft, most people expected him to be a top 15 pick, but he ended up falling out of the first round due to the fact that he had an injury that he suffered. And last year was pretty much a redshirt year for him. I think this year he could really hit the ground running. And I don't think he's going to tee off right out the gate. I think this is going to be somebody who you're probably going to start hearing more during the second half of this season, because he's still going to have to adjust to the NFL game. Last year was a redshirt year, so this year is pretty much his rookie season, even though this is his second year in the league. So I'm really high on David Ojabo. And then you look at how well Kyle Hamilton played. There was one of my homies who was telling me that he thought Kyle Hamilton was going to be a bust because he saw Kyle Hamilton's slow 40 time. But if you watch Kyle Hamilton when he was coming out of Notre Dame, like, this dude was an absolute stud. And playing alongside of Marcus Williams, I think that really helped out Kyle Hamilton a lot. And he did have some mistakes early in games. Like, he was giving up a good amount of touchdowns the first couple of games in the season last year. But as he got more experience and as the season lingered on, Kyle Hamilton continued to get better week after week. And he quietly had one of the better seasons that we've seen out of any of the rookie safeties. Like, we all know about Jaquan Brisker with the Chicago Bears, and most people should know about Jalen Petrie, at least if you consider yourself a diehard football fan. But Kyle Hamilton, he was just as good as those guys. It's just that he got out to a slower start. And then you look at the fact that Marlon Humphrey has all of a sudden became the most underrated cornerback in the NFL. Didn't this man only give up 1 touchdown last season? And there's a lot of top 10 cornerback lists that I've been seeing on social media floating around that don't have Marlon Humphrey in them. How can you leave out Marlon Humphrey, somebody who only gave up 1 touchdown last season? Like, that makes no sense to me. This is going to be a fantastic defense that the Ravens have going into this year. Like, look who they have at linebacker. Patrick Queen has improved every single year. And then you traded middle of the season for Roquan Smith, one of the best linebackers in the game. The Baltimore Ravens, not only are they going to have one of the best offenses in the league, but they also are going to have one of the best defenses in the league. And that's why I have them coming in at number 4. Number 3, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles lost 2 really good linebackers, and TJ Edwards and Kazir White to free agency, but they're going to have a really good replacement in Nakobe Dean, who the Philadelphia Eagles were able to steal in the 2022 NFL draft. Nakobe Dean was expected to be a first-round pick. Nobody had him falling the way that he did, and for Philadelphia, they struck gold with him, and I think that he's going to have a very incredible season for Philadelphia this year. I think he's going to end up being a Pro Bowler. He potentially could be in the conversation of becoming an All-Pro. That's how high I was on Nakobe Dean when he was coming out of Georgia. And then you look at how good this defensive line still is. Like, yeah, they have a lot of guys such as Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox who've been around the block, but they got the demon from Apaka and Jalen Carter. A lot of y'all think I'm a huge fan of Bryce Young and Tank Dell, but neither one of those guys were my favorite players in this past year's draft. I was a huge supporter of Jalen Carter, and I hate how the media villainized Jalen Carter for all the off-the-field incidents he had. Like, for Philadelphia, Jalen Carter is going to hit the ground running. Like, this dude probably should have around 8-9 sacks as a rookie. And that's high praise considering the fact that he is an interior defensive lineman. I think that's how good Jalen Carter is. Like, if you're an Eagles fan and you don't watch a lot of college football, go back and watch Georgia versus LSU in the SEC championship game. This dude was a one-man wrecking ball against LSU's offensive line. He literally sacked their quarterback with one damn arm. This dude is a freak of nature. And then you pair him up with another freak of nature from Georgia. I guess we got to call them the Philadelphia Bulldogs, because they just have a love for these Georgia Bulldogs players, man. You got freaking Jordan Davis, who, before he went down, he was really good against the run this year. And with more opportunities this year and playing alongside of the vets that he has in front of him and Jalen Carter, I think Jordan Davis is going to improve as well. Now, hopefully he can give you more when it comes to pass rush. But when Jordan Davis was in games, he was really effective against the run. And when he went down and missed some time with injuries last year, the Philadelphia Eagles run defense started to go down a little bit in production. And a lot of people on social media were talking about it. And it kind of started to happen when Jordan Davis had that injury. And then in the secondary, you bring back Darius Slay, James Bradbury. You got Reed Blankenship. You signed Terrell Edmonds. Now, if you're an Eagles fan and you don't know how good Terrell Edmonds is and what to expect from him, you're asking the right guy to give you a little bit of the synopsis on Terrell Edmonds, because I've watched him his whole entire career because I'm a Steelers fan, and I wasn't happy when we drafted him in the first round. I still aren't happy that we drafted him in the first round because he's not on the team anymore, but he wasn't bad. As a matter of fact, like, Terrell Edmonds got better every year with Pittsburgh. It's just that he never played up to the level of what you expect when you draft the safety in the first round. Now, he's really good in run support. He's somebody who you can play up close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to be really good against the run. He's going to fill the run pretty well. He doesn't miss too many tackles, in my opinion. I think he's a pretty solid tackler, but he's not all that great in coverage at times. Now, he's not dookie in coverage, but I kind of feel like for Terrell Edmunds, him being in Philadelphia is kind of a prove-it spot for him. But when you look at how well Reed Blankenship played last year, I don't think anybody expected Reed Blankenship to play as well as what he did. And then you got Sidney Brown, who I feel like was one of the more underrated prospects coming out of this past year's draft on the defense side of football. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't think this defense is going to drop off at all. And a lot of players, you know, they weren't really huge fans of Jonathan Gannon. Like, they give him props, but they make it seem like they could have done better. And you bring in Sean Desai, who spent last year at with the Seattle Seahawks. So Sean Desai, I think there's a pretty high chance that he could end up being a better DC than Jonathan Gannon, but we have to wait and see on that. So the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are going to have the third best defense in the NFL this year. At number 2, I got the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins on paper have arguably the most talented defense in the NFL. And I was close to putting them at number 1, but the other team I had at number 1, I just couldn't not include them at number 1, so I had to put them over the Miami Dolphins. But the Miami Dolphins, the hiring of Vic Fangio was one of the biggest offseason acquisitions, not just when it comes to players, but coaches in general. Vic Fangio, he's pretty much the most influential defensive coordinator in the NFL right now. I mean, you look at the fact that many defensive coordinators are starting to implement Vic Fangio's defense, and also the fact that Vic Fangio's defense has kind of influenced a lot of defensive coordinators to try to add their own wrinkle and spin to it. And you traded for Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, some people are trying to say that he's washed up. He is not washed up. Jalen Ramsey is still a top 3 cornerback in the league, and that's at worst. And if you want to go a little bit farther, okay, top 5, but don't make it seem like Jalen Ramsey still isn't an elite cornerback. Like, why are people trying to call Jalen Ramsey washed? Like, he still had a very good season for the LA Rams last year. And then you pair him alongside of Xavier Howard, who had a down year last season. And I don't want to hear no excuses about injuries or whatever, bro. Like, if you are playing, you should be good enough to produce at a high level. Xavier Howard, that may have been the worst season of his NFL career that I watched last year, man. This dude was looking like burnt toast at times, man. Burnt toast. And nobody likes burnt toast. So with the addition of Vic Fangio, he should be able to get Xavier Howard playing back to his former self and not the version of Xavier Howard that we saw last year. And then you got Bradley Chubb, who played his best football when Vic Fangio was his head coach up there in Denver. And Vic Fangio, he's going to be able to get the most out of Bradley Chubb. And you pair him alongside of Jalen Phillips, and you got Christian Wilkins on that defensive line. The Miami Dolphins, this is a super stacked defense, talented at pretty much every single position. I love me some Javon Holland. Can't forget about him. I think they're going to have the second best defense in the NFL this year. And now number 1, can we get a drum roll? I got the Dallas Cowboys, man. The Dallas Cowboys, they have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL this year, and Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, he probably is going to end up becoming a head coach next season. He could have became a head coach this past offseason, but there was a couple of jobs that he decided to turn down. I mean, they are deep on their defensive line. I love the addition of Mozzie Smith. And then you look at the fact that you're going to have one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL with Trayvon Diggs and also Stephon Gilmore, who Stephon Gilmore was still fantastic when he was playing for the Indianapolis Colts last year. And then you are incredibly deep at the safety position. You got Donovan Wilson, Jerron Kearse, Malik Hooker, and then that linebacker. You're deep at linebacker. You got Leighton Van Der Esch, who is really good when he's able to stay on the field. You got Michael Parsons, one of the 5 best defensive players in football right now. The Dallas Cowboys, I think going into the 2023 season, have the best defense in the NFL, and they got the best defensive coordinator in the league. And Dan Quinn, It's the sole reason why I still believe that the Dallas Cowboys have a fantastic opportunity to make it out of the conference this year. If you need a reason to have faith in Dallas, you should at least have faith in Dan Quinn. This defense is going to be really good. So I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 1. These are my top 10 defenses going into the league. Let me know how you guys feel about it down in the comment section down below. Let's take a second to read the comments. I see somebody talking about the Tennessee Titans. Man, stop it, man. Stop it. The Tennessee Titans, Christian Fulton, come on, man. He's not one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Y'all got to cut it out. Christian Fulton, I love me some Jeffrey Simmons. The Nico Autry, man, you just naming people, man. You must be a Titans fan. You got to be a Titans fan. Damn, you got the Texans in the top 10, but not the Panthers. Like, the Panthers were really close. I probably would have them at number 11. But the Texans defense has a lot of studs on it, man. And stop acting like you was watching the Houston Texans last season, Ty Sills. Like, you're a Panthers fan, of course you're going to say that. But their defense has a lot of talented studs on it. Do you not know how good Jalen Petrie was last season? They got Derek Stingley. Like, you need to go do some research on the Houston Texans defense, bro. Because DeMeco Ryans is going to have those boys cooking this season. Dallas will be a bottom of the league defense. They don't play the game. How are they going to have a bottom of the league defense when they had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year and they got one of the top coordinators? I think Ryans will improve their defense, but I don't know about top 10. Dallas is backwards for solid. I'm saying, man, like, some of y'all kind of sounded like some haters right now. Y'all talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Jeff Simmons, Kevin Byard, top D-line, say, stop it, man, stop it. Like, the Titans have an underrated defense, but I don't think their defense is top 10. I mean, outside of those guys you named, those are your key players. Like, all of these defenses have more impact players than the Tennessee Titans. You don't have a TJ Watt or an Alex Highsmith on your team. You got Harold Landry, he's really good. You got Jeff Simmons, but the 49ers got Javon Hargrave, Arik Armstead, Nick Bosa. I mean, like, I'm not sleeping on the Titans or the Carolina Panthers, but the teams that I have on my top 10 defenses list, I just think are a little bit more deep. Now, I want to talk about Lamar Jackson's playoff struggles. All right, now, I know a lot of people done heard it already on social media, the whole, oh, Lamar Jackson doesn't perform well in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson just isn't able to get it done in the playoffs. And there's many people who I feel aren't giving Lamar Jackson the fair benefit of the doubt. It's like everybody has all these excuses for why Josh Allen and why Tua and Justin Herbert come up short, and why Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers choked that lead to the Jaguars. They got all the excuses for Josh Allen, but nobody wants to have the same excuses for Lamar Jackson. Some of y'all are just a tad bit biased when it comes to supporting your team starting QBs. Like, the narrative that Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs just makes no sense to me. And then people try to negate the fact that he's won the playoff game. Yeah, you may think about his losses in the postseason when they got upset in 2019, his MVP year, to the Tennessee Titans, and when they had lost to the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round. But you forget that they beat the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs right after they got knocked out in the playoffs by Tennessee the year after. I mean, I don't get this whole narrative that Lamar Jackson cannot win in the postseason. Like, I think Lamar Jackson has been held back by the fact that Greg Roman has been unable to be able to game plan and actually prepare an offense that's going to be able to win in the postseason throwing the football. You see, in the NFL, it's not 2012 or 2011 anymore when you can win with having Dennis Pitta, Torrey Smith, and whoever else the Ravens had as their pass catchers the year they won the Super Bowl. Like, I keep hearing that. I keep hearing people say, JT, like, Lamar Jackson can't get it done in the postseason, but Joe Flacco was a Super Bowl champion and he had less. Like, that was a different era of football back then. The league has changed. You got to be able to throw the football if you want to win. You got to have some receivers outside that can make some plays. Like, even though Kansas City didn't have a star-studded group of wide receivers, like, they had a solid core of wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, both of those guys would be starters over whoever the Baltimore Ravens were starting at wide receiver last year. Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken, I'm trying to tell you people, he is going to cook this year. He's going to cook this year. Like, the narrative that Lamar Jackson can't get it done in the postseason is really starting to blow me. Y'all got to quit. Y'all got to quit. Like, if you want to make these excuses for Justin Herbert and all these other QBs who come up short in the playoffs, Dak Prescott, you got to have the same respect for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is one of the most talented QBs of the past decade. When Lamar Jackson is on, you do not want to see this man. And now the fact that he has some legitimate wide receivers, I cannot wait for this season to start, bro. Because Lamar Jackson is probably going to end up winning his second MVP this year. Todd Monken is going to be able to elevate this passing game. You're going to have an offensive coordinator that's going to upgrade the route combinations that the Baltimore Ravens have been running for the last couple of years under Greg Roman. A lot of Ravens fans and a lot of people in the national media have called out Greg Roman for his elementary level route concepts. Greg Roman's version of 4 wide receiver sets in the spread offense was having 3 tight ends on the field, man. You telling me that Lamar Jackson was supposed to win with 3 tight ends on the field, man? Like, come on. It's the year 2023, not 1994 or 2006 or 2011 or 2012. It's 2023. You got to be able to have receivers who can win outside. You got OBJ, which OBJ, a lot of y'all seem to forget, he was on the verge of winning Super Bowl MVP. You saw what happened to that Rams offense when OBJ got injured in that Super Bowl. They struggled to sustain anything on offense until the final couple of minutes of that game against Cincinnati. You got Zay Flowers, who in my opinion was the best receiver coming out of this past year's draft. You got Rashad Bateman, which some of y'all may be believers in Rashad Bateman still. Some of y'all might have already hopped off the Rashad Bateman hype train, but Rashad Bateman has shown flashes of what he can be when he was healthy last year. So you got Rashad Bateman, you got OBJ, Zay Flowers, you got Mark Andrews as well. Lamar Jackson is going to cook this year under Todd Monken. And the fact that Lamar Jackson can't win in the postseason, I think is a false narrative when he already has a playoff win. Like, I think that too many people are trying to go off a narrative about Lamar Jackson that isn't truly accurate. A lot of people think that Lamar Jackson just isn't a good thrower of the football, and that's false. The dude was top 10 in QBR last year. Every game that Lamar Jackson has played, the Baltimore Ravens have always had the opportunity to win. When Lamar Jackson plays, the Ravens are normally in contention for the number 1 seed. And then when he gets injured, that's where things start to go left. But we got to stop with this narrative that Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs based on history. History does not define how good a quarterback's going to be in the foreseeable future. You got to judge a quarterback for what he has now, the weapons that he has, the offensive coordinator that he has. The Ravens are going to be running the same offense this season that they ran under Greg Roman. This is going to be an offense that's going to be elevated. This is going to be a passing attack that's going to be the best that Baltimore has had in years. So the narrative that Lamar Jackson will never be able to get it done in the playoffs and he's just a terrible playoff performer, he's just a great regular season quarterback, I think is false. I want to talk about my top MVP candidates for the 2023 NFL season. I'm going to have a lot of fun reading the comment section for this segment. I'm going to start off with Lamar Jackson. I'm riding the Lamar Jackson hype train all season. And if you haven't already hopped on the Lamar Jackson hype train, you better grab your tickets before it's too late because tickets are starting to sell out. Todd Monken is about to have Lamar Jackson playing at elite level. Y'all thought Lamar Jackson was unstoppable his MVP season. You have not seen anything yet. We know how good Lamar Jackson is as a runner. But imagine how good he's going to be with the offensive coordinator that's going to fully unleash Lamar Jackson's complete skill set. Lamar Jackson is also a better passer than what he gets credit for. I'm getting tired of these running back jokes, man. Like, the running back jokes were cool in 2018 and 2019. It's 2023. If you're still using the Lamar Jackson running back jokes, you're corny, fam, and you're not funny. Nobody's laughing at them anymore. Ha ha ha. Find some better jokes. Lamar Jackson is my front runner to win MVP this year. Lamar Jackson has Zay Flowers, OBJ, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman. This is the most talented group of pass catchers that the Ravens have had in a very long time. Name me the last time the Baltimore Ravens had this much talent when it came to their pass group. Mark Andrews is arguably one of the best tight ends in the game. OBJ is still a fantastic receiver when he's on the field. And Zay Flowers is going to tear it up this year. Lamar Jackson is my pick to win MVP this year, and that's why I have him first on this list. Now, behind Lamar, I got Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts came in second place in MVP voting last year behind Patrick Mahomes, and some argue that if Jalen Hurts never had to miss the few games that he did due to injury, he probably would have won MVP last year. And you look at the team that the Eagles have going into this year, pretty much the same team that they had from last year. They still have the best offensive line in the NFL. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You upgraded that running back with DeAndre Swift, who's going to be very good catching the ball out of the backfield, something that I don't think Miles Sanders was all that great at. Jalen Hurts, as long as he can stay healthy, I think that he's going to be able to be in the conversation for MVP. And what's even more scary is that I've been seeing some reports that said that if you thought Jalen Hurts arrived last year, he could be even better this season because he's still improving as a passer. And Jalen Hurts was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league last year, throwing outside of the numbers. And something else that I really love about Jalen Hurts is his mentality. Like, I was telling my homie a couple of days ago, like, there's just some players that you can look at and just know that they're going to be him. Jalen Hurts is one of those guys. Y'all remember when he had that turnover in the Super Bowl against Kansas City? And when I just looked at him, I looked to one of my homeboys and I said, watch Jalen Hurts score the next drive. Came back and answered with a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, his mentality is just different. He's that definition of somebody who has that dog in him. I love me some Jalen Hurts, man. I think Jalen Hurts is definitely going to remain in the running for NFL MVP this year. He almost won it last year. He was runner-up. We got some salty Cowboy fans in the comment section. Man. That boy Jalen Hurts is a dog. It doesn't matter if they lost in the Super Bowl. They didn't lose in the Super Bowl because of Jalen. Jalen was out there making plays. Put some respect on my man's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts damn near won the MVP last year. If it wasn't for injury, most people feel he would have run away with it, although Patrick Mahomes had a fantastic year. So I got Jalen Hurts on my list for MVP candidates going into the 2023 season. Next up, I got my guy, Joe. Now, y'all boys know Joe Burrow right now is my favorite player in the NFL alongside of Justin Fields. It's a tie between Joe Burrow and Justin Fields. But I love me some Joe Burrow, and I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But every time I watch Joe Burrow play, he gets it done. Like, you got people who say, man, JT, like, Joe Burrow doesn't have great playoff numbers. Oh, he isn't good in the fourth quarter. He has no fourth quarter touchdowns in last year's playoff run. Like, I don't give a damn. Joe Burrow gets the job done. All I know is that Joe Burrow wins games. And like I was saying earlier about Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow has that dog in him too. And you look at the fact that now Cincinnati should finally have solved their issues on the offensive line, signing Orlando Brown. We don't know who the hell's playing right tackle is either going to be Jonah Williams or Lael Collins, but hopefully they get that right tackle situation figured out, and hopefully they have no injuries on the offensive line this year. Y'all got to start looking at Joe Burrow on the same tier that we look at Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know that there's levels to this. You got Patrick Mahomes, and then you got Joe Burrow, but then there's everybody else. And I don't think that the gap between Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow is all that big. I think Mahomes is up here, and Joe Burrow is just a little bit underneath him. Joe Burrow took the worst offensive line in the NFL that season that allowed him to get sacked 70 times and led them to the Super Bowl. And now he has a great offensive line. You're going to have the best receiving core in the NFL, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. You signed Irv Smith. Irv Smith could go crazy in this offense. Jalen Hurts was really underrated last season for Cincinnati. And now you got a more athletically gifted tight end. Joe Burrow damn near was my pick to win MVP if Lamar Jackson didn't have Todd Monken as his OC. I love me some Joe Burrow. That's what I call Joe Burrow. I either call him Joe Burrow or I call him Joe Money, because every time you put money on Joe Burrow, he comes through. Love me some Joe Burrow. Had to have him on my list of potential MVP candidates. Next up, I got Trevor Mr. Sunshine Lawrence. A lot of people think that this is about to be the great awakening for Trevor Lawrence this season. And the whole city of Jacksonville, the whole county of Duval is really expecting Trevor Lawrence to elevate into that top 3 quarterback discussion. And now they add the fact that you got Calvin Ridley, who I was listening to an episode of I Am Athlete. Devontae Adams had Calvin Ridley in his top 5. Can you believe that? Somebody considers Calvin Ridley to be a top 5 receiver? And I mean, I'm not going to push back against it because it's Devontae Adams. I trust his word more than mine, but I don't know if I would consider him a top 5 receiver. But I mean, you look at all the weapons that Trevor Lawrence has in Jacksonville. You got the fact that, what was his name? Christian Kirk, who had a really good season last year. Hopefully you can get things figured out with Evan Ingram, who had the best season of his career last year. And the offensive line, I don't think it's going to be as bad as what people expect it to be. I think that offensive line is going to be perfectly fine. Just people are tweaking out about the fact that they didn't re-sign Jawan Taylor when they got Walker Little. Walker Little is going to fill up just nicely in that right tackle spot in replace of Jawan Taylor. This Jacksonville Jaguars offense is going to be built around Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence has all the weapons at his disposal, plus Doug Peterson as his head coach. This should be the year that Trevor Lawrence gets into that top 5, top 3 quarterback conversation. A lot of Jacksonville fans are really excited about how good Trevor's going to be this year, and I can definitely understand why. You look at Trevor Lawrence and how good he was in the second half of games last year. Some people will say that he was the second best second half quarterback in the league behind Patrick Mahomes last year. Yeah, he didn't start games off great. You saw those 4 interceptions he threw against the LA Chargers in the wild card round, but you saw how he responded. You saw how he played in the second half. He was playing like a man possessed. Same thing in that Dallas Cowboys game. Same thing against the Baltimore Ravens. Like, one thing about Trevor Lawrence, this dude just has no conscience. He may start the game out cold, but when that money's on the line and you need somebody to step up and make him play, that's when Trevor Lawrence is going to be at his best. Sunshine has a legitimate chance to win NFL MVP this year, and there's some people that I talked to who even picked him to win the award, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Now, next up, we gotta have Patrick Mahomes on here, man. Now, I believe that was his second MVP award that he won last year. He very well could win that thing back-to-back, although it is very hard to win a consecutive MVP award. The last person who did it was Aaron Rodgers. But Patrick Mahomes, he put up incredible numbers last season. And there were some people that were counting out Patrick Mahomes last year. My guy, Juice Alert, said that they weren't even going to win a playoff game because they lost Tyreek Hill. And believe it or not, there were a lot of people more than not, who thought that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to take a step back last year. And Patrick Mahomes, from week 1 to week 17, was the most dominant quarterback in the NFL last year, and he should still remain that this season, despite the fact that the AFC is going to be tougher. So, Patrick Mahomes, I just think that you got to have him on one of these MVP lists every single year, even if you don't think he's going to win it, because it is hard to win it every single year. It's kind of like how some of the best players in the NBA are, like Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James. It's like you can make an argument for those guys winning MVP every single year, but sometimes it's just the fact that they've won it so much, it's kind of hard for them to outdo their previous MVP season. Patrick Mahomes, you just gotta have him on this list just out of respect. Now, this next person that I have on here, ooh, I just know y'all about to go crazy on me, man. I just know y'all about to go crazy on me, but you know, I like the sound of MVP Geno. How y'all like the sound MVP Geno? And I know it sounds absurd to have a guy like Geno Smith on this list, but this dude was balling out last season for the Seattle Seahawks, and all the Seattle Seahawks did was get better. And you could probably say that Geno Smith was a top 10 quarterback last year. And you look at the fact that they add Jackson Smith and the Jigba to this offense with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and you're going to have a really good offensive tackle duo, which probably could be the best offensive tackle duo in the NFL. Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas. This is going to be one of the best offenses that the Seattle Seahawks have had on paper. I love me some Geno Smith. You rolled him off, and he didn't write back. And there's already people in the comment section saying, man, you tripping. Somebody just left the stream because I just put Geno Smith on this list, man. But Geno Smith has one of the best offenses in the NFL. There's just no reason why he shouldn't put up MVP kind of numbers this season. You saw how efficient he was last season. And if the Seattle Seahawks had a better record and they didn't get, a little bit inconsistent during the second half of the season, Geno Smith probably would have been a lot higher in that MVP discussion. So if Seattle ends up having one of the best records in the NFL and Geno Smith continues to build on the season that he had last year, he most definitely could be in the running to be a finalist for the NFL's Most Valuable Player Award. And lastly, if you thought Geno Smith was outrageous, you're about to get incredibly upset with this one. But you got my guy, Justin Timothy Fields. Justin Fields gets a lot of hate, and it's not deserved. If you watched the Chicago Bears last season, you would know that the only time their games were close was when Justin Fields was playing his best football. When Justin Fields started taking over games, he was really hard to stop. I mean, look at his size. This dude's pretty much built like a running back. And not just that, but this man is a way better passer than what people are giving him credit for. He was held back by having one of the worst receiving corps in the NFL. This man was throwing to Dante Pettis, dog. Dante Pettis. Equinemius St. Brown. I love their podcast, but Justin Fields now has legitimate number one wide receiver in DJ Moore. He has an improved offensive line. And you're going to have Darnell Mooney coming back. When you look at Justin Fields, many people feel like he can have a similar leap this season that Jalen Hurts had last year in 2022. And when you look at how this MVP award normally comes down to being able to have big games and being able to put up video game like numbers and making a lot of viral plays on social media, this is Justin Fields. This is something that he kind of does really well. One play that he had in particular that a lot of people should have been talking about more was that play when he damn near broke his neck against the Philadelphia Eagles. He breaks off one defensive tackle, and next thing you know, he starts hitting that left sideline, and this dude's just going crazy. Hits somebody with a spin move, and this man's still hauling ass downfield. Like, Justin Fields was one of the most electrifying players in the NFL last season. So if you don't have Justin Fields on your MVP list, man, what are you doing? Do you just not believe in Justin Fields at all? Like, the MVP award is also a little bit about flash. And I think Justin Fields is the definition of flash. With all the highlight reel runs that he's capable of making, all of the big time throws that he's able to make downfield when he has a good group of receivers, which he will have this season. You got to have Justin Fields on your MVP list, man. But this is my list of MVP candidates going into the 2023 NFL season. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this. I want to talk about my biggest concern with the Cincinnati Bengals this season, which is their secondary. Now, they lost their 2 starting safeties and Vonn Bell and Jessie to free agency. And they're going to have some new guys stepping up and replacing them. They also lost Eli Apple. And I know a lot of people feel like Eli Apple is garbage. He was one of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL. But actually, Eli Apple was pretty solid at times for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I'm not saying that he was great at anything, but he was solid at times. So they're going to have to replace him. Now, you have Chidobe Awuzie coming back. He suffered an injury week 8 of last year that kept him out for the remainder of the season. You still do have Mike Hilton, who pretty much, in my opinion, is still the best slot cornerback in the league. But who's going to end up lining up as that number 2 cornerback on the opposite side of Awuzie? Now, you got Cam Taylor-Britt. He's expected to get the start. He started most of the Cincinnati Bengals second half games, and he had a really good performance in the postseason for Cincinnati. Played really well against the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round, and he also played fantastic in the AFC Championship game against Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And when you look at Cam Taylor-Britt, this is somebody who is a explosive athlete, which the Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of explosive athletes in the secondary, but he's also really aggressive with his hands. This is somebody who wants to get in your face and get physical with you. And he's also a willing tackler. Now, he does struggle with being a little bit overly aggressive at times, but I think Cam Taylor-Britt could have a really good season for Cincinnati, taking over that full-time role as Cincinnati's second cornerback going into this season. Now, another cornerback that I really like a lot was a second round pick that the Bengals made in this past year's draft out of Michigan, DJ Turner. He was one of the more explosive cornerbacks, probably the most athletic and the most explosive cornerback out of this past year's draft class. He ran a 4.26 40. He also is very fundamentally sound, good technique, and everybody was paying attention to the phenomenal freshman cornerback that Michigan had last year. But DJ Turner, he was on a lot of receivers like White on Rice. Good feet, great hips, and he just sticks with receivers and coverage. And he's not incredibly handsy. As a matter of fact, I think that's the best thing about DJ Turner, is that this is a cornerback that if you put him in games, you're not going to see him getting called for a lot of pass interference penalties. A lot of cornerbacks in college football nowadays tend to be a little bit handsy than what you would like. But DJ Turner, if Cam Taylor-Britt ends up not working out, I think he could end up being a good starter for Cincinnati. If Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't play well and he struggles, you can slide DJ Turner up in there. And then when it comes to safety, I'm really excited about Dax Hill. This dude was a freakish athlete during his time for Michigan. They was lining this dude all over the defense, on the line of scrimmage, in the slot position, and they kept him back in at safety. And you look at how well he played in the preseason last year. We didn't really get to see a lot of him during the regular season, but he's very explosive, very twitchy. This is somebody who's going to put his body on the line to make plays. And I'm really excited to see how Lou Anarumo is going to utilize Dax Hill, because you can do a lot with Dax Hill that you weren't able to do with your previous safety due to how athletic he is. And you do have Jordan Battle, who is a 3rd round pick from this past year's draft. He isn't as athletic as the other defensive backs that the Cincinnati Bengals have in the secondary. Dax Hill definitely has Jordan Battle beat when it comes to athleticism, but Jordan Battle is a really smart football player. During his time at Alabama, I never really saw him out of position. He was always in the right position to make plays. He has a knack for the football. He also is pretty good in coverage. I didn't really see him get beat too many times. I also think that he's pretty good in man coverage as well. And he has the versatility to play both safety and free safety, which Cincinnati is definitely going to be able to utilize if their free agency signing and Nick Scott, who played for the LA Rams, doesn't work out. Now, Nick Scott, he was pretty solid for the LA Rams. I might go as far to say as underrated in a sense. And the Cincinnati Bengals got him for a pretty good bargain in free agency. They didn't have to dish out a lot of money to get him. And plus, I think this is somebody who can bring great value to that safety position in Cincinnati. Now, he's not somebody who does anything great, but he does a lot of things very well. He's a big hitter. He had a lot of big hits for the LA Rams. He also is pretty good in coverage. Not great, but good in coverage. And like I said earlier, he's not elite at anything, but he does a lot of things very well. So overall, he's a very solid safety. So my biggest concern for Cincinnati is the secondary, but overall, I think that this secondary, with Lou Anarumo being their defensive coordinator, should play very well. And they got a lot of backup options if one guy doesn't play well or one guy just doesn't pan out. Like if Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't play well, they can go ahead and insert rookie DJ Turner. And if, Dax Hill doesn't play well, you can insert Jordan Battle. Or if Nick Scott doesn't work out, you can insert Jordan Battle into that other safety position. Like he can play any of the two safety spots. So I love what the Cincinnati Bengals have and their secondary. Yeah, they have some guys who you may not know of who are going to be unproven, but Cincinnati has a lot of athletes at the safety position. So this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this late night edition of the podcast. Now, if you guys want to, I'm going to open the phone lines up so you guys can go ahead and call in. I got to get the number so I can put it on screen. I know for that one Titans fan that was going crazy saying that the Titans should be on my top 10 defense list, this is your time to, explain why Tennessee is being slept on. And then for everybody that thinks that I'm overrating Lamar Jackson, you're welcome to call in and explain why. So I'm going to put the number on the screen. I got to type it in. So this is the number if you guys want to call in. Let's see. So the number isn't popping up for some reason, so I might just have to go ahead and put it in the chat. Man, it ain't even showing up, man. So I got to go ahead and put the number in the chat. It's not showing up. Yeah, so I'm about to go ahead and put the number to call in the chat. For those of you guys who just want to go ahead, call in and sound off and give your take.
Expedia members save on travel.
Give me a second. So this is the number I posted in the chat. I'm going to pin it up above. If you guys want to call in and sound off and give your take. A lot of people are saying that I'm overlooking the Titans. So if you feel like I'm overlooking Tennessee, Mr. Jones, go ahead, call in and give your take, man. Give your take. Tell us why we're sleeping on the Tennessee Titans this year, man. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Once again, make sure that you guys check out the podcast, available on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. We're going to stay live for like the next 3 minutes. If nobody calls in, we're just going to go ahead and call it a night. So the number is on the screen for those of you guys who want to call in: 434-394-0339. Anyone sleeping on the Titans better wake up and apologize. LOL. Flash in the pan. Yeah, him and Dak and Mahomes are my picks. Justin Fields, never doing anything on them. Geno reverts to his old self, throwing INT after INT. Malik Willis took Pat to overtime. Derrick Henry can win MVP. Man, you just a diehard Titans fan, Mr. Jones, man. Like, I really hope you call in. You got to call in, man. We got to hear your take on the Tennessee Titans. Hello, what's going on? You on the line with JT Sports. Who's calling in? What's going on, Charlie? What you got on your mind, man?
I just wanted to know what your opinions on the Dolphins defense. Do you think they could finish in the top 10 since they have Jalen Ramsey now and Vic Fangio as the DC?
So earlier, I don't know if you caught it, but I did my top 10 defenses going into this upcoming season. I had the Miami Dolphins at number 2 behind the Dallas Cowboys. I think they have one of the most stat defenses in the NFL. And with the addition of Vic Fangio, this is going to be one of the best defenses this season. I think they're going to have the second best defense in the league behind Dallas.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the sky's the limit for that.
How you feel about Tua as a Miami Dolphins fan? And where would you rank him amongst NFL QBs?
I think he's top 10. I'm nervous always about a big player's health. That's just how I am. But if he stays healthy, I think he's an MVP candidate for sure.
Now, today, if you had the opportunity to pick between Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa to be your starting quarterback for this season, who are you taking?
Man, it's tough. I want to say Tua, but I guess I'd lean Justin Herbert just because of the health concerns with Tua. That's the only reason why I would lean Herbert. But it's very close. I don't think Herbert outclasses Tua or anything. I think he's just a little bit better.
Thank you for calling in, Charlie. Have a good rest of your night.
Oh, of course. Thank you. You too, man. Keep it up with the great videos. I love it.
I appreciate the support, man. Had our guy Charlie on the line. If anybody else wants to call in and give your take, you're welcome to do so. Mr. Jones, man, like, I'm waiting to hear from you, man. If you're still watching, I'm waiting to hear from you. How good are the Tennessee Titans going to be this year, man? Because you make it seem like in the chat, everybody's sleeping on the Tennessee Titans, man. Call in and give your take. We love to hear what you have to say. Plead your case for the Tennessee Titans this year, man. Because apparently a lot of us are sleeping on Tennessee this season. Let's see. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Like, y'all really think that Geno Smith is just going to fall off a cliff like that, man? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think some of y'all are kind of being a little bit biased against Geno Smith, man. Like, I think Geno Smith is going to be perfectly fine this year. Like, the Seahawks did nothing but get better. All right, JT, that's outrageous. Mahomes is way better than Burrow. Yeah, it also depends on the complexity of the scheme. I don't know if Monken would be so complex year one. I disagree because it takes a QB a whole season to get a new scheme down. I mean, shoot, Tom Brady went to the Super Bowl year one in Tampa Bay. I mean, Peyton Manning took the Denver Broncos to the playoffs his first season. Somebody said lame arm Jackson. Okay, you are a troll, LOL. I wouldn't go that far. If you guys want to call in, the number is on the screen. I guess that's it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of JT Sports Live. I will see you guys Monday with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Have a good rest of your